how involved are you after the transaction is actually taking place?
We are not involved, so that is not what we do. We get them to the chapel, we get them married, but we're not business consultants.
When COVID happened, we all thought veterinary medicine would actually slow down, and it did quite the opposite. It sort of doubled. For those that aren't aware, it basically doubled in caseload in the span of 6 months.
Veterinary medicine has become almost primarily female, and the female practitioners often want a work-life balance, so they are in it for the medicine and the care. They're not necessarily in it for the entrepreneurship piece.
Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Gregory Kovsky. Gregory is the president and CEO of International Business Associates, the Pacific Northwest's oldest and largest business brokerage firm with over 30 years of experience. Gregory, I'll stop there because I want to let you tell your story, and we've already sort of discussed that your father was a veterinarian, so we have some common ground. But thank you so much for being here today. I'm looking forward to the conversation and appreciate your time. So thank you.
My pleasure. It's an honor to be here. And you are correct. My introduction to business brokerage was as a child. My father in his 40s went through a midlife crisis where he decided he didn't want to be a practicing veterinarian anymore. The tipping point, and Jason, you might relate to this, is he had a breeder who had a large group of wire-haired dachshunds that they showed. Mm-hmm. And he was going out of town with my mom for their anniversary to the Oregon coast. And he had 2 other veterinarians on staff, but he could get none of them to come in and do an emergency cesarean section on a wire-haired dachshund. And so he, very frustrated, had to go in and do the surgery, changing his plans for the weekend. And that was a tipping point where he decided, I have no control in my life, and I'm going to sell my hospital and real estate. So he sold his veterinary practice in Portland, Oregon, and actually used his degree a new way, and he went to work for Hill's Pet Products, teaching pet nutrition to veterinarians across the United States before it was a thing in the 90s. So that was my family's first exposure to business brokerage. And I didn't think much of it at the time. I just learned I didn't need to clean runs and cages on weekends, which is what the oldest son often got to do, feed the dogs. And went away, pursued my degree at the University of Texas in investment finance and accounting, graduated, pursued my first career, took me to Kansas City, and being a Northwest boy, I missed the mountains and the ocean. The job was fine, but I decided to come back, and I didn't know what I wanted to do next as a career step. And was actually talking to my father, and he said, you're a salesman by personality. You've got the accounting and finance background academically. I think you'd be good at selling businesses. So he introduced me to the founder of IBA, Bill Osofsky, in 1994. And I ended up joining the firm. And as they say, the rest is history. 2025, I'm still here.
It's great. It's great. It's it's funny because just on the topic of the veterinary real quick, the children, I think this is the children of veterinarians either run towards or run away. There's like there's kind of tends to be no middle ground, I think. So it's like you either end up working at your parents' practice, or you're like go total opposite direction, which it sounds like is what you did. I don't know that although business brokerage is relevant to veterinary medicine, it's probably a very different skill set and background in training than what your father saw as a at
Yeah,
least as a student in early career.
I'm not a big fan of blood. And I had
Yeah,
one of these fathers who used to like take pictures of his surgeries and share them at the dinner table. I fondly remember one where he removed a racquetball from the stomach of a dog. And that's what we got to see while we were enjoying spaghetti at the dinner table.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense why you either run to or run away from that sort of thing. So, no, that's fascinating. So, I guess at the time that he went through that sale, uh, you were too young to really be. You weren't like involved in the sale or anything like that. That was kind of just maybe an early introduction type of case. Am I understanding that correctly in terms of timing?
Correct. I was still in, I think middle high school when that happened. And I didn't think much, but the testimonial of my father that they did a good job and that he would feel good about placing his eldest son in that company caused a positive impact that it became an option. So
Yeah,
if, who's better at giving a testimonial than a happy customer?
yeah.
And so that was a positive for me. And he had left thinking it was, which it is, a challenging, financially rewarding career for those who perform.
Yeah, no, that I mean that is probably about the uh, sort of best endorsement you can get from the former customer is happy enough to recommend their son, regardless of the industry, I guess. But I think that's quite good. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about you know what you do. I mean, I understand business brokerage because we acquire businesses. I probably don't understand it from the broker side, but tell us just a little bit about so the listeners can understand what it is you do. I don't know if you have a specific niche that you focus on, but talk a little bit about kind of what your day to day looks like.
Sure. So, as you shared, IBA is the oldest and largest business brokerage firm in the Pacific Northwest. We've been in business since 1975. I've been with the company since 94 and the president, CEO, owner since 2000. And we are a sell side representation company. So we focus on helping people retire is our most common client. The second is people who enjoy creation more than management and they decide they would like to exit when it gets to a stage. And then the third would be what I call distress situations, which are health, divorce, partnership breakup, etc.
Yeah.
So IBA, we just serve as a trusted guide, paid 100% on performance, where we don't charge a penny to our clients until we complete the transaction. So we
Mhm.
start with a valuation of the business and give you an honest opinion of the market value for the business. We do this full time, paid 100% on performance. So we have a vested interest in being honest with you on the value. We want the business to sell at the highest possible price, but we want it to sell. We don't want a product just to sit on our shelf. So that's where the process always starts. And then this is a very sophisticated, nuanced business where you actually need knowledge in about 6 different areas at a level of a professional. So we need to understand accounting, we need to understand tax, we need to understand finance, we need to understand law, we need to understand real estate, we need to understand business, and then we need to understand psychology,
Yeah.
because in many cases you're selling a child. And yes, the value you get is very important, but at the same time, you're concerned about your employees. They're your extended family. How are they going to do in a transition? Your customers, they've been loyal to you. You're known for serving them in the community. Again, say you're the community veterinarian. How many people have brought their animals to you over the years? You don't want feedback when you go out to dinner that the new veterinarian doesn't have a great bedside manner and raise prices. That is not what you want to experience. And then vendors, making sure maybe you golf if you own a roofing company or a construction company with the owner of the local lumber yard, and they are counting on you for your business, and now it leaves, and now their business is incrementally and
Yeah.
impacted. So I'm always cognizant of the ecosystem that spreads out from each and every business, from their employees to their customers.
Are you planning a remodel or construction project? Overwhelmed by the process? Over budget? Extended timelines? Strained relationships? We are all too familiar. At Lark Construction Services, we help homeowners and business owners take control of their construction journey, from reviewing bids and contracts to catching red flags before they become costly mistakes. Our Clarity Audit is a one-on-one expert review of your plans, estimates, or current progress, giving you the peace of mind and a defined action plan to move forward with confidence. Don't let confusion lead to costly errors. Visit larkconstruction.com and schedule your free call today. Lark Construction Services, saving you time, money, and stress.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a lot that goes into those transactions, and it's funny you said, it's like you're selling a child. I've actually used that exact analogy when I've talked to people about like why it took me 2 years to close my first business transaction, because it was like I had others that were lined up, and then it was like the seller just didn't want to. They just decided they didn't want to anymore, things like that. And it seemed very, very much like what it would be if, I don't know, maybe it's a father walking his daughter down the aisle or something like this. Like, it's a very big transition point of, something that you have grown. Oftentimes these owners have grown their business for 20, 30, 40 years. And as you mentioned, they're worried about their team. They're worried about their legacy. They're worried about also the financial impact it will have on them, from all those different angles. So it's funny how I thought it was going to be very much like real estate transactions, and it's not. It's quite different, in fact, and there may be real estate involved, but it's just not the same, as has been my experience anyway. I don't think buying someone's 30-year business is the same as just selling a house or something like that. It did not have that feel to me.
Well, it's 100% true. I mean, you can buy the most beautiful waterfront house for multiple millions of dollars, and you never need to meet the former owner. It's more of a commodity sale, where just down the street, if there's a diner that everyone loves and they're known for their pumpkin pancakes or whatever it may be, if you change the recipes, that business may fail,
Yep.
and it's not a guaranteed transition. So we work really hard, though we represent sellers, to set buyers up for success. We want to create an environment of full disclosure and transparency. We want to use best practices because our reputation is tied to the sale as the architect of the transition. But our seller, the last thing they want is 3 years later to see their life work out of business,
Yep.
or someone that had a kid in college run into them at a restaurant and say, my family's in turmoil, I got laid off, and my daughter who was going to this school that she worked so hard to get into had to come back and go to the community college because I just couldn't support her anymore. And my assumption was I could because I had been with your company 15 years and knew what my salary was.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's it's like buying that waterfront home with the family still living there, kind of, if it, to carry that analogy out. So as a broker, how much, I mean, there, you mentioned there's legal implications, there's finance implications. How much do you get involved? I'm assuming that you counsel your sellers quite a bit. Do you kind of guide through the whole transaction? Do you help on the transition end? Like to what extent do you feel your I don't know where your roles start and end?
So IBA is different. I mean, we hold ourselves to a standard of a top tier professional, whether it's an attorney, CPA, wealth advisor, whoever it is. And the advantage we bring is experience. Personally, I've done over 300 transactions. The firm has done over 4,400 in its history. So we are not attorneys, but I have read hundreds of purchase and sale agreements. I have been in negotiations over reps, warranties, indemnification, non competes, and I know where the middle of the fairway is. So, my value as a trusted guide is to keep the parties talking, to find a yes solution that works for both of them, because counsel on both sides will sell fear. They will share their experience, and attorneys' experience tends to be negative. They tend to share the lawsuits they've known, where out of our 4,400 transactions, we have a very small percentage that ends up in litigation. So we are talking from a high success rate. So it's just a different perspective. It's knowing on financing. Again, we represent the seller, but the seller needs the money to close. And we will often find the financing for the acquisition, knowing that a specific bank focuses in a specific sector or geographic area, or has a looser lending policy than a tighter. I mean, for example, the big national banks, your Bank of America, your Wells Fargo, tend to be more bureaucratic and harder to get financing than, say, your proactive SBA lenders, be it First Internet Bank or Live Oak or Huntington Bank, who just focus on financing entrepreneurship and probably have a better credit box for an entrepreneur to get a loan than walking into your neighborhood national player.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. When so as you walk through these transactions and you have that transition piece, there's a lot that has to happen kind of in those first maybe few weeks to month in terms of transition of ownership and things like that. Is that something that you feel that is a part of your role as a broker, or you kind of walk away at the closing table? How involved are you after the transaction has actually taken place?
We are not involved. So that is not what we do. We get them to the chapel, we get them married, but we're not business consultants. We are professional intermediaries, and we're going to make sure all the pieces are in place to do a positive transaction. But that's where we would step aside, and maybe their CPA or they're hiring a new CFO or an outsourced CFO to come in, however they want to run the company. That's buyer's choice. They're buying the keys to the car. They drive it off the lot. They get to do with it what they want.
Yeah, yeah. What size do you have? Like a size range of business that you tend to advise in, or just kind of anyone who comes in? What do you have a specific focus? Sounds like you do a lot of transactions, so I'm not sure if that means a pretty wide range of business sizes, or what if you have a niche there.
Jason, excellent question. So, starting with industries, we represent companies in about 20 different industries, from medical practices to education to manufacturing to retail and hospitality, construction. We're pretty comprehensive, and I have different brokers on my team. I have 18 intermediaries on my team who have different areas of specialty um, to represent businesses. And then size, we like to start where people are working on a business, not in a business. So
Mm-hmm.
on the low end, we like about a quarter million in EBITDA as a starting point. We believe people at that level have succeeded in American society. It could be a community auto repair shop, another niche that we are well known in, where they have five mechanics and they earn 350 a year running their business. We want to help that person sell that. Maybe they own their real estate and we're licensed in Oregon and Washington to sell real estate. So we can do both asset classes for a client under one umbrella. And then we go up to about 5 million in EBITDA or 25 to 30 million in transactions. We were talking before we came on the air in the veterinary space, with you being a veterinarian, how we did a lot of transactions when corporate veterinary hospital chains were rolling up independent veterinarians. And one of my favorites to work with was VCA. And I still love their call sign on Wall Street, if you recall. It was woof.
Oof, yeah. Yeah, yeah. They that was probably the well, who knows how it worked out for them, but when they got bought out by Mars, and they were no longer publicly traded, you could not buy Wolf stock anymore. But yeah, that was a funny thing for them to have. Um, because I have a lot of friends in the veterinary world, and your father was a veterinarian, and you've been involved in these transactions. It was an interesting time, sort of 2020 to now, when COVID happened. We all thought veterinary medicine would actually slow down, and it did quite the opposite. It sort of doubled. For those that aren't aware, it basically doubled in caseload in the span of I don't know, 6 months. Um, And so it was kind of a wild ride. And then a lot of people sold practices maybe during 2020, 20 to 2021, somewhere in those for really, I think they had great multiples. And then things have shifted a bit now. It's come back in terms of busyness. It's come back more towards maybe the norm or what we had before COVID. What have you seen in that space? Just transactionally, what has happened over these last few years in your experience?
A couple things. So, metro areas have been highly bought up. So it's not a space where it's necessarily easy to compete. Occupancy cost. It's actually very interesting also in the industry, and you're likely aware of this. Veterinary medicine has become almost primarily female. And the female practitioners often want a work-life balance. So they are in it for the medicine and the care. They're not necessarily in it for the entrepreneurship piece. So they have settled frequently into the corporate model. And we represent many great female entrepreneurs, but I do think the testosterone in males drives entrepreneurship. There is a reason that the number of entrepreneurs in the male demographic exceeds females. And I think it's just the hunter in us, the desire to climb to the top of the mountain, compete, etc. So I do think that happens. But to get back to your question, I think there's great opportunities to maybe in concentric circles be outside of the cities, and then as population growth continues, to then have an exit out to those type of corporate players, because you have built up that practice kind of when there was a limited marketplace, and now it's a substantial marketplace. So we see good activity in some of the rural locations, plus the opportunity to own your dirt and control your occupancy costs. The other thing we see is the specialization in veterinary medicine, where maybe you're the emergency clinic or you're the aviary clinic. Those sort of things still can be quite lucrative in the space as a business model, finding where the corporate players maybe are not playing at the same level, or I've even seen mobile veterinary hospitals that come to you and will service at your home, which customer service is king in many business models. So those type of things can be very positive. And one of the areas we're very active in is the pet space in general. And we have frequently sold boarding facilities, training facilities. We actually just completed the sale of a pet treat manufacturer, Kathmandu, who sells their products online through sites like Chewy.
Yeah. Yeah. The I guess veterinary adjacent businesses do seem to be very, very popular amongst just like other people I know in the business acquisition world. I will say maybe the perspective on ownership in the veterinary world is different from inside and outside, but I know a number of female practice owners, managers, veterinarians that are fantastic entrepreneurs. So it's you're right. It is a female dominated industry now, but I have not. I don't know that I have the same perspective on the entrepreneur side of things. Having said that, I do think there is a shift overall in I would say generationally, just in interest in practice ownership. And the challenge I'm seeing is we had, like I said, I had a number of friends sold their practices really at just the right time, made a nice exit for themselves. But now, at that time, the private equity groups, the VCAs, the larger corporations were buying up practices like crazy. I've seen a few of them have to sell them. Like they got a little bit maybe out over their skis and have had to sell off some of the things that they acquired. I've also seen, and this is not good for the near retirement generation, but I've seen the interest, particularly if it's not a large practice, like at the one doctor, maybe two doctor practices, don't have quite the same interest from a sale perspective. And so I think that's going to be the challenge that is faced here now is that people that want to buy a veterinary practice, they want it to be 2, 3, 4, 5 doctor practice. They want to buy something big. Just like, you kind of mentioned earlier that you want to buy the business that you can work on the business and not in the business. If you buy a solo vet practice, that doctor presents quite a large amount of key man risk. So I guess I've seen from the inside a little bit of a pullback in that space, and maybe more interest in the veterinary adjacent, like you mentioned, the treats, the pet supplies, that kind of thing, grooming and daycare, like doggy daycare. Those things seem to be bigger, but I don't know, because I also perspective is everything, because I'm a veterinary surgeon, and so I walk on the streets and I see dogs limping wherever I go and don't understand that their owners don't see it. So, or maybe they do, I don't know, but it is your perspective is going to shift what you see in the world. But I don't know if you've seen any of that pullback in the veterinary space. I do think you're right. I think there's certainly still opportunity there, but it's interesting to see what has happened, kind of that bit of an up and down over the last 4 or 5 years.
And I don't discount female entrepreneurship. I mean, I have 4 very talented female M&A brokers on my team.
Yeah.
And frequently they represent female entrepreneurs. We have found female entrepreneurs often like to take gender out of the room and have a female CPA, female attorney, and female broker. So not all of them. I mean, I've represented many females over my lifespan. In fact, when you talk about the creativity and opportunity, one of my past clients in the pet space manufactured raw pet food.
Yeah.
And Randy went into it because a beloved pet of her own wasn't treating issues that they had with skin and others with traditional diet. Yeah. And she took almost that holistic, naturopathic approach, which she uses in her own life for diet, and applied it in an animal context. And we have 2 Weimaraners at home, and they eat exclusively a raw diet. And I can tell you, their health is amazing. We lost one a couple years ago who lived 16 years. And so you are what you eat. I bought into the concept. I don't think wild wolves and foxes eat much kibble.
No, true. True, they do not. And I think that actually that is maybe one of the biggest like entrepreneurial angles in veterinary medicine is people extrapolating either from their own experience or things that happen in human medicine and kind of bringing it into the veterinary world. That happens a lot, and there's been a lot of really great advancements and revelations from that. I mean, like physical therapy, acupuncture, things like that have become a big part of the veterinary world where it didn't used to be, kind of, I guess it's happened over the last, 10, 20 years, but yeah, things like that, the diets, all of that. I think it's a pretty cool space for people to use their creativity in. I'm obviously biased. I'm I'm a veterinarian, and the space is important to me. So I do have some some bias towards that. Well, let me switch gears here. I want to make sure I get to ask you the questions I ask every guest, and of course the main one is based on the name of the show being Know Your Why. Gregory, what is your why? What's you've had a lot of success. What is your why now at this point in your career? You're been very successful. What kind of keeps you excited?
I love teaching and mentoring. It's one reason I'm doing podcasts like yours is I believe we've got a huge population, the baby boomers, that are going to transition ownership of their businesses.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that they're doing it from a foundation of knowledge. There's a lot of misconceptions out there, a lot of deployment of blunt instruments where, for example, the tax rate, if you called it a non-competition agreement, is a personal income tax rate. It's essentially wages not to work. Where if it's the goodwill of the business, it's a long-term capital gains tax rate. So there could be a 10% or greater spread between calling elements of your business one thing or another.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, a buyer wants the seller to sign a non-compete. But from a legal and tax standpoint, do it in a way where you're not sending more money to Washington, D.C. or the state of California than you need to. This was your life work, and it always troubles me when a third or more of the proceeds of the sale go to the government, because my view on entrepreneurship is you're creating jobs, you're paying local taxes, you're funding Social Security and a variety of things. It's kind of like an estate tax on the sale of your business. And I work hard to help people mitigate, and that's one place where knowledge can make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, there's, I mean, you touched on this, all the different, almost hats that you have to wear as a broker, because there's so much involved in a business acquisition, and the tax implications both for the seller and buyer. Like, it can be dramatically different based on, the way you structure things and how, and so, yeah, really important stuff for people that are, looking to sell their business or buy a business. I think you have to look at it on the front end as well. So I think having someone with your level of experience and knowledge as a guide and a coach through that process, I think is tremendously important. With that being said, when people hear this and they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Well, I would start with our website, which is ibainc.com. So ice cream boy, apple, ice cream Nancy, Charlie.com. And I would direct people, if they want to learn more about buying and selling businesses, to our blog. We have had over 200 authors in our history, publications at least twice a week of content from members of my firm, CPAs, attorneys, bankers. So good source of information. You also can always call me at our corporate headquarters at 425-454-3052.
Okay. Great. Well, we'll have that in the show notes, and I will definitely check out that blog. That's very interesting. Well, Gregory, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. Appreciate all that you shared with us. I think there's, like I said, such a value to having someone like yourself guiding you through that, what is a very, very difficult and often personal transaction for people, especially on that seller side. So thank you so much for being here today, and we'll make sure that everybody finds all your contact information in the show notes.
Thank you, Jason. I enjoyed the interview.
Absolutely. Folks listening, make sure you connect with Gregory. Please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get great guests. And as always, thank you so much for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?